Oh, oh my God, guys. I've had a hell of a time down here in the temple. I dug down like too deep, man. I was like doing that Lord of the Rings thing, like you dig too deep down in the mines, and I stumbled onto a temple of lava doom. I don't know if I'm allowed to legally say temple of doom, but it's a temple which one could find their doom inside of. And as you can see, it's very lava-y. There's lava flowing. This is a very different aesthetic to the typical review. Really, we're breaking new ground here by including the lava trenches, and I'm also not wearing my jacket. So, you know, it's basically a whole new series. One could even call this a soft reboot, hypothetically. But for now, I was digging down here in this Temple of Doom, and in the middle of some lava, I dodged some lava piranhas, and I found this kick-ass artifact, and that artifact is Madame Web. Truly an artifact that belongs in the fiery pits of hell. Alright, let's get into it, guys. Madame Web is the movie of all time. Everything you heard, speculated about, and maybe even wondered about, it's in the movie. It is that interesting. I have a lot to say about it. This might wind up being kind of a long one, and for that, I'm sorry. But it goes without saying that this movie sucks. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's stinky. It's smelly. It's poorly put together, poorly edited, poorly acted, and extremely poorly written. And I loved every single second of it. Holy shit, guys. This movie was funny as hell. I was laughing pretty consistently. Every line of dialogue was terrible. Every single thing said by an actor or a character in the movie was horrible. The plot is super nonsensical. The villain literally makes no sense. The entire movie seems hell-bent on setting up Peter Parker's birth, which is something that I frankly never needed to see. We'll get more into that later. And half the movie literally makes no sense. Like, it's sort of something you have to see to believe, and I don't think that's like an exaggeration at all. Like, you literally have to see this thing to even believe it could be real. Alright, where to even start with this thing? Like, there's 100 places I could go with this. Do I start with the Peter Parker bullshit, the Ben Parker stuff? Do I start with the Madame Web side of things? Do I start with the villain? Hold on. We're gonna flip a little thing here. Alright, let's start with Peter Parker. Yeah, so like, I'd say 30% of this movie's plot revolves around Peter Parker's birth. Something nobody wanted. Literally, nobody wanted. There's moments in this movie where they, like, act as if the audience isn't gonna know that Ben Parker's nephew is Peter Parker. Like, they tease the name, like, they have this whole extended sequence where Madame Web goes to a baby shower for Peter Parker, and they're like, what are you gonna name him? We're gonna play a guessing game, and everyone's guessing, like, is he gonna be Ben? Is he gonna be this? He's like, no. And then they never say the name. It's like, oh my God, they're saving it. I realized, like, immediately, they're saving it for a reveal. And sure as shit, in the third act, after Peter Parker's mom, whose name I cannot remember for the life of me, has her water break on the floor of their house, which is going to give birth to Spider-Man as an infant baby. We have this sequence where they're trying to get her to the hospital, and they take these 3 random kids along that the villain is trying to kill. This movie is like really hard to explain. Like, the plot is just nonsensical as hell. And they go to the hospital, and then Ben Parker is like, we get the reveal of young baby Peter Parker, and they're like, he's Peter Parker. And someone in my audience went, oh! Like, that was a shocking reveal, further degrading my opinion of the intelligence of humanity. Every movie I see just degrades my opinions of humanity. It's just, I think it's just sort of like everyone, you know, sort of feels that way. For me, it's movies. Golly, what are other things that happen in this movie? Yeah, Madame Web, who can see the future, by the way. Not that you would know that, because no one and their mother has heard of Madame Web. I was very vaguely familiar with this character, and Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. I've read his comics for years. I barely knew who the hell Madame Web was. I think she appears very briefly in, like, the Spider-Verse comics as, like, a character, and she sees the future, and she's this blind, old, decrepit lady. Clearly they missed the mark here. But to everyone's benefit. So, Madame Web sees the future, and at the end of the movie, Ben Parker looks at baby Peter Parker and goes, oh, you know, he's so handsome, but I don't think I'm going to have too much to do with his life, like a little in-joke. And Madam Web goes, I wouldn't be too sure about that. And they play it for laughs. But in the back of my mind, I was like, wait a minute. Does Madam Web know that Peter Parker's parents are going to die? Oh my God, she does. She totally knows that Ben Parker is going to raise Peter Parker. And she's not doing anything to stop it. Why is Madam Web not trying to spare Peter Parker's parents' lives? She needs to save them. Oh my God, is this like a canon event thing? Why is she like? I was like, oh my God, she's so evil. Like, she makes a joke out of it, like she's just toying with her friend Ben Parker, knowing that he's about to lose his loved one. I love it and hate it at the same time. It's so dumb. Oh, okay. Also, Ben Parker, you know that famous thing that he says, with great power comes great responsibility. Man, what a good line. Yeah, so in this movie, we get the reveal that Ben Parker didn't come up with that line. Madam Web tells it to him. So we got the origin story for the line, with great power comes great responsibility. And Madam Web is told that by some random Peruvian native with spider powers. Because, oh yeah, there are spiders in the Amazon, which give you Spider-Man powers, but are unrelated to the spider in Oscorp completely. It's just the separate, unrelated magic spider that gives you magic superpowers for no reason. Because I think this is supposed to be a prequel to like either Tom Holland. I think it's Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and they keep hinting at revealing Aunt May, and like they kind of cut around it, and they don't end up doing anything with it. I for sure 500% think there were scenes filmed with Melissa Tomei. And then Kevin Feige caught wind of that shit, and he was like, shut it down, we're not doing that, that's not happening here, not in my MCU, man. We're shit, but we're still not on the level of Morbius and Madam Web, alright? We don't want anything to do with that. And so they removed Melissa Tomei from the movie and cut down significantly on the Peter Parker shit. And admittedly, there's still a ton of pointless Peter Parker shit in this movie. So let's circle back to those magic spiders, because I really do think that it bears mentioning that there are now magic spiders in the Marvel Universe, that if you get bit by them, you see the future, and also you get Spider-Man powers. So they can, like, mass-produce Spider-Men by just having this spider sort of just bite anyone and everyone. And there's these 3 Spider-Women in the movie who have Spider-Man powers and Spider-Man tech, and I don't know who they're supposed to be. We hear that they're going to appear in 10 years, right? Peter Parker's a little boy. So if they appear in 10 years... then there's 3 spider people fighting crime before Peter Parker ever gets bit by that spider. Why? Why would they do that? Whose idea was that? It's so dumb. Oh my God, I hate this movie, dude. I hate it and love it at the same time. So let's talk about like the Madam Web plot. So Madam Web gets the ability to see the future. She sees that these 3 random kids are going to get killed by a big bad guy in Spider-Man's costume, because there's another Spider-Man running around before Peter Parker is even born with spider powers, and Spider-Man's exact costume, just by coincidence, I guess. It makes no sense, but so she saves these teens and then like winds up just like slumming with them for a while, just keeping them alive like Final Destination, until the villain is killed by random falling rubble that she like lets hit him, but doesn't actually do anything to forcibly kill the villain, because there's no fights in this movie. Madam Web's superpowers seem to include seeing the future and the ability to drive a vehicle into the villain whenever and wherever, no matter what. She miraculously is able to always have a truck flying right at the villain whenever she needs it. I kid you not. The villain is defeated 3 times in this movie. The first time, Madam Web hits him with a taxi cab. A taxi cab which she drives around for this entire movie, even though it's stolen and reported to the police, with no consequences. She leaves it at an airport for a week, and then comes back to it and starts driving it again. The police never take it from her. She runs it into the villain. And then in the next fight scene, when the villain's about to kill the heroes and they need someone to save them, Madam Web drives an ambulance into the villain, defeating him and saving the day. In the final fight scene, the villain is defeated when Pepsi product placement falls unconnected to anything our heroes did and hits the villain and kills him. There's lots of really funny shit in this movie that I could just bring up, like the fact that there's a scene where they use a Roman candlestick to destroy a brick wall. Like it's dynamite. That was amusing. They shot the little Roman candlestick at it and it blew up the wall. and one of the characters went, awesome. There's a sequence which I think might be some of the funniest dialogue ever written for a movie, where Madam Web and these three random spider people who aren't spider people sit down in a hotel room, and one of them goes, you know, my mom went crazy and got locked up in a loony bin, and my stepdad doesn't want anything to do with me, and my stepmother hates me. And then the other girl goes, yeah, my parents are dead. I'm an orphan. And then another one goes, yeah, my parents are rich and they never wanted to give birth to me. I was an accident. So they fucked off to China and left me alone here. And I don't have any parents. And then Madam Web nodded and said, yeah, I'm an orphan. And it was fucking hilarious. Like, the execution was terrible. They're acting, like, all of the actors in this, like, they deserve to never work another day. Except for the guy who plays Ben Parker. I know him from Parks and Rec and Game Night, and he was hamming it up. So was the villain. The villain was delightful for all of the 2 sequences that he's in the movie, because he's so hammy and so bad that he wraps it around to being amazing. Madam Web is so terrible that she just remains terrible. She's the most unconvincing performance, like, of all time. My favorite part is where Madam Web somehow manages to fly to Peru despite being wanted by the police, and then immediately is able to book a private plane to this unexplored middle of the Amazon rainforest. And she walks 10 feet and then immediately finds the tribe of spider people who have remained hidden for thousands of years that she was looking for. And that was really convenient. I'm glad Madam Web was able to quickly ascertain the location of these elusive spider people with magic foreseeing powers that allow them to hide. That was good. They take her to a magic pool and tell her she was born there. And because she was born there, that she has magic future-seeing powers. And they tell her that she can see the future good, and that she can use her powers now. And Madam Web goes, oh my god, you're right, I can use my powers now. And then she can use her powers perfectly, with no struggle. The funniest scene in the movie, besides the scene in the hotel room, is the opening scene, which is just incompetent on so many levels. Like, it's a thesis statement for the rest of the film, as I often say. It's perfect. But the villain has maybe the funniest reveal of him being evil ever. He shoots a pregnant woman because she won't hand over a spider despite being pregnant. Well, actually, okay, hold on. I'm going to think about this because they explain that later and it kind of makes sense. So I'll take back my critique of that not handing over the spider thing. But the villain shoots her and she goes, help me, and like reaches out to him and he goes, help you? Nobody helped me when me and my mom were starving on the streets. And then he turns and walks away. And that is the extent of the backstory we get for the villain. Legitimately, I have no idea who he was, what his motivation was, why he and his mom were struggling in the street. There's no flashback. There's no monologue where he reveals his motivation. His motivation throughout this whole movie is that he sees the future. These 3 little girls kill him. And he wants to live forever and be evil forever. So he tries to kill them. And there's no explanation for why he's motivated to do anything. No explanation for why he wants to find the magic spider serum. I feel like it was probably written and cut or something. The writers for this movie are a prime example of what I've been pointing out for years, which is falling up in Hollywood. I've been making fun of it for Raph Jenkins or Jenkins, whatever, the guy who wrote Wheel of Time. I have a whole video about that. I'm still trying to get out, guys. I've been battling Amazon and copyright on that. But he has been following up forever. He followed up to Uncharted, ruined Uncharted. He followed up to making, obviously, Wheel of Time, which was a terrible adaptation of those books. And he followed up to season 2 of that. And now he's followed up to making the God of War television series for Sony. Because no matter how many times you fail, you're always going to get a better project. Need I point out the resume of the people who wrote Madam Web? Well, their reputation precedes them. They wrote Transformers: The Last Knight, the worst Transformers movie, and that's an accomplishment. They wrote the Power Rangers movie, which I remember being, kind of mid. No, it was bad, I think. It was bad. And then they wrote, obviously, Morbius. They wrote Morbius, which is a terrible movie. It's a horrible movie, and it's awful. Things I never knew I needed until I saw this movie. Seeing Spider-Man's mother break her water to give birth to Peter Parker. Having characters time the contractions to give birth to Peter Parker. Having an origin story for the Great Power, Great Responsibility line. Having Pepsi product placement defeat the evil villain in the end. There's so much amazing shit in this movie. The implication at the end of the movie that Madam Web literally says, you know, I see you maybe being heroes in the future, but the future is fickle. So who can say maybe that future won't come to pass? Because the best thing about the future is we have no idea what it holds. And that's literally the writers going, I don't know if Madam Web or any of these female Spider-Man will ever appear again. So we're going to add a convenient out in case that they never show up again. And it's hilarious. Madam Web gets blinded in the third act because she gets blasted by a firework that shoots into the water and it just blinds the shit out of her. That was funny. The villain just sucks at everything he tries. He cannot secure a kill at all in this movie. The man is terrible, and he can see the future too, but he never really seems to use that power. So don't quite understand that. All in all, yeah, it was pretty terrible. You could have like played it for comedy, like had the two future seers just stand and look at each other, and like we know that they're each seeing futures where if they take this step or that step, and one of them occasionally takes a step. Very rarely, and they're just having like this mental battle with each other where they're killing each other over and over again in each possible future and tweaking the future, and you know nothing ends up changing because they're just standing there looking at each other, you know. But Madam Web doesn't really lean into it like that. They're not trying to be funny, and when they do try to be funny, it falls flat. They're just sort of accidentally funny pretty consistently. No one in this movie has a character. None of the dialogue really tells us anything about them. Madam Web is like a wet blanket. Honestly, the person with the most personality is Ben Parker, and he barely has any personality and shouldn't have been in this movie. Seriously, the Parkers have no point being in this film. They add nothing. It's just there for fan service, and I mean, I don't know, man. So Madam Web, I'm going to give this like a 2 out of 10. This movie sucks. Nah, 2.5 or 3. And on an ironic value, this is probably like a 6. It's not the best, so bad it's a good movie, but there's some pretty funny moments, especially if you're a guy with a writer's brain, like you like to look at like how screenplays are sort of devised. You'll probably find something pretty funny in here. Spider-Man fans, this isn't the worst thing that ever happened to the franchise. That still belongs to Paul. But keep your efforts up, Sony. That new Kraven movie where Kraven is a vegan might be able to take Paul's reigning champion belt. I don't know, but we'll see. I've been movie archaeologist. I'm gonna dig deeper into the lava temple. We're gonna beat the lava temple for 3 episodes before I swap back to doing the summer gimmick of wearing Hawaiian shirts and being on a beach, and then we'll switch back to the regular temple background. So that's your release schedule. So y'all can look forward to seeing the green screen. I mean the temple change behind me from a beach to a normal temple again. Yeah. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.